Hello, my most amazing artist. Today you're going to be getting back your clay donuts, which are no longer clay now that they came out of the kiln. That clay has turned into something called ceramic, which is what it's called when you have kiln-fired clay. So now you have ceramic donuts. They might sound more like glass, but they're not glass, they're called ceramic. But they can break, so please be very careful with them today. You're going to be taking a tray from the clay buffet and adding your brushes. You want to get a sponge and then one brush of every size, a large brush, a medium brush, and a small brush. I got one out of every size bin possible, so I have a variety of brushes in case I need them, because we're going to be doing something called glazing your ceramic donuts today. Now, glaze is a type of paint that we're going to use that changes when it goes back into the kiln. So we're not having our donuts just in the kiln one time, they're going to go in 2 times. So today, when you paint your ceramic donut, it's going to look a little different than it will when it goes back into the kiln. You'll see pictures on top of your glaze trays. We'll show you what it looks like when the paint comes out of the kiln. If you paint 3 times over top of your ceramic donut with this kind of paint, it's going to turn out really glossy and shiny. Because this is not paint, it's called glaze. Glaze is a type of paint that's made out of little tiny bits of glass. Because of that, it's also very expensive. So that's why it's important that you always make sure that you're not mixing the colors together, you keep them separate and have a clean brush in each color, and if you need a refill, you have to read off of the lid and ask me for that specific funny name, like Blue Dawn, Blue Isle, Dandelion Yellow, Cracker Jack Brown, Hot Tamale Red, Sunkissed Yellow. You have to say the specific color if you need a refill. When this kind of paint goes into the kiln and gets really hot, it starts to melt together and become glass. And that glass will turn very shiny and the color will change once it cools down. So you want to make sure to do 3 coats of glaze on your whole donut. So I'm going to be doing 3 of any color I choose. You'll notice that it also can break easily, so be careful. That was a ceramic tile that I had that broke when I dropped it. So be extra careful with your clay creations today. But you want to make sure you do 3 coats of glaze so it comes out the shiniest and the brightest possible. If you miss any spots today, or if you don't do 3 coats of glaze, it's not going to come out as glossy and shiny. We want to make these look as realistic as possible. So you're going to have 2 different types of glaze trays on your table. You do need to share these with your team, and they come with different types of colors. So one of the trays is going to have more pastel-like colors, like I'm using. Then there will also be a tray of bright rainbowy colors. You can pick whichever ones you want to use. You could use a little bit from each. It's up to you. If I wanted to use all the colors, I could, but I would want to make sure I clean my brush in between. I'm deciding that I'm going to make a strawberry glazed donut. That was what I did for my plan when I did my oil pastel drawing. So I'm taking a large brush because I'm painting a large area, and I'm just brushing on that light pink color. Now, it's not going to be this light pink when it comes out of the kiln because I looked at the picture and it's called Pinkaboo, and it's going to come out a nice pink, kind of like a glazed donut from when I go to Dunkin' Donuts and ask for a strawberry frosted one. That's kind of what it looks like. So it's going to look different when it goes back in the oven. So make sure you look at those pictures and look at the names written on the lid. If you need a refill of a color, you'll have to ask for that funny name. You can always sponge off any of the glaze before it goes in the kiln. You can remove it and change mistakes. You can erase them using that sponge brush. Now I'm doing my second layer. You'll be able to paint your 3 layers of glaze very fast without having to let it dry in between because the clay sucks up all of the moisture in the glaze and it sinks right in and dries super fast because that clay is really porous. I'm painting the base coat of my donut because I'm thinking about how a donut was built. Remember, when you bake a donut, you start with the dough, then it gets frosted, and then after that you do the toppings like sprinkles or chocolate frosting or anything extra. You don't want to paint the bottom of your donut because it's already that cake color, and you don't want to paint your details first because that would be really hard to paint around all of that pink icing underneath the chocolate sauce. So I'm going to be painting the pink first, and I can always put the darker colors for the details on top after. So paint your biggest parts first and don't worry about getting things in the little details because you can always go back on top with another color and a smaller paintbrush after. So I think I'm about to be on my 3rd coat of glaze. After I do 3 coats, if I want to use the same paintbrush, I have to clean it off using the sponge. We're not going to be using water cups today to clean our brushes because glaze and water do not mix well. If you were to have a wet paintbrush or mix your paintbrush with water and then go to the glaze, it would come out really thin and not look so nice and glossy. If I want to mix colors though, I can. Just make sure you're not going from one color to the other in the glaze tray, because that would mess up the colors for the next person, and glaze is very expensive. So instead, I'm just adding a little bit of that color on my tray, mixed it together on the tray, or right on my donut. So those are the two places that you can mix colors. You can also just use one different brush per color if you prefer. So if I wanted to switch my color, I can just use a different paintbrush. If I want to do my details, I could use these squeezy bottles for all the little details. So I had that chocolate drizzle, or it could have been raspberry drizzle, or any kind of frosting that I made 3D out of clay. But now I want to paint it. Instead of using my small paintbrush to paint all that extra texture on there with the frosting, I'm using a squeezy bottle that I had to shake and unclog and test on my tray first, and then I squeeze it on very carefully, because those squeezy bottles are known to get clogged or explode on you, and you wouldn't want to ruin your whole donut. So I tested it first on the tray, and then I'm squeezing it on to make a chocolate frosting drizzle. If you want to drizzle on caramel sauce or chocolate sauce or raspberry sauce, strawberry sauce, or just any color frosting you want, you can use these squeezy bottles, but you cannot use them first. You can only use them when you're all done and have done 3 coats of glaze on everything. When you use the squeezy bottles, make sure you put the lids back on when you're done. Return them back to our glaze table so that way other people can use them, because I don't have enough squeezy bottles for everybody. I only have one of each color, so you'll have to return it so other people can borrow it after. When you're all done with your glazes, make sure to always put the lids or the caps back on so that they don't dry out. When you're done with your brushes, you don't want to put those back in the brush trays or leave them on your tray, because they need to go soak in the paintbrush hot tub. Your donut can stay right there for a little bit to dry before you pick it up, because you'll notice this one's really wet. But then if I let it dry for just a few minutes, there it is. It's already dry. Now I can pick it up and put it over on Mrs. Q's baking tray so it can go back into the kiln and get all shiny and glassy. Then I'm going to put all of my sponges I used, all of my used paintbrushes, into the paintbrush hot tub so that they can soak and take a bath and they don't get all yucky and dried up. All right, artists, have fun glazing your donuts today. Can't wait to see what you create.